Hi, Juan. How are you today?
I'm great, Nestor. My great pleasure meeting you and chatting with you again.
Thank you. So, CFIN members, I'm recording this conversation today with Huan Xia. She's a longtime friend and a former colleague, and she has a very, very interesting and fascinating career in the food industry. So, I want to explore a little bit of that and how she come to innovation and how she come to fund her company and launch her products. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to go first through your professional formation and understand how you went from an undergrad in biotechnology to becoming a food scientist and get your PhD at Penn State University. Why food?
It's a fascinating question. It's a little bit incidental, to be honest, right? Of course, I have always been a foodie before I became a vegan. Right now, it's not much too much foodie right now because there's not many choices, which led to my startup today. But when I grew up, I always loved the food, and my mom actually practiced traditional Chinese medicine, so really focusing on functional ingredient to help people's health. So I'm always fascinated how we can create the different functionality in the food, because food is medicine to really help people to drive better performance, everything. So when I did my undergraduate, like Nestor mentioned, it's biotechnology. However, we had a concentration on the fermentation. So when we did the graduation project on this subject, we actually was able to brew some beers. So it is closely related to the food. Then when I decided to pursue my graduate studies, I was fortunate enough to meet my PhD advisor in my college in China. And he was a department head for the food science department for Penn State. That's what, I love to pursue the career with the right advisors. So that's what I decided I need to do the food science for my master's and PhD. So that's kind of started my journey. Yeah.
That's fascinating because the importance of advisors and having a good mentor, both during your studies, university, and also during your professional career, is so important. And I think that's a great message for young professionals. So then
Yeah.
you went into the corporate world for about 10 years, I believe, seven
Mhm.
of which were at McCain Foods, where I met you and
Yeah.
we collaborated in a couple of projects. So, what moved you to launch your own company and leave the safety net of a great corporate career?
Yeah, I really had a wonderful time in the corporate American per se. I learned a great business skill right after graduate school from Mars and McCain Foods. I'm always very grateful for all the colleagues, the cultures, especially people like Nestor, who has helped me so much along the journey. Um, yeah, however, you have to listen to your heart, right? You have to listen to the deepest calling in your mind almost. And after I became a vegan about 7 years ago, this type of calling becomes stronger and stronger. I feel like I need to really dedicate all myself to the path closer to my life destiny. And I mean, McCain Foods has been great, really, to cultivate me in the business skills and technology development for both the food product and agriculture technologies. However, I felt that the very urgent needs for me to create much better options, much more options in the plant-based world. And the plant-based food really transformed me both physically and mentally, especially made me much more clear mind to realize what's really important for us, right? And especially when the pandemic came, I realized there are so many people with compromised health. They are more subjective to the virus, everything. And I think food can definitely help them. It's not only for sustainability, it's also for people's health and for the planet well-being. So that made the pandemic actually made my decision much firmer. And also the life got a little bit boring in the pandemic. For my role, we had to transition completely online. Everybody was that. Yeah. So I didn't have the usual work to travel all the time, everything. That saved me a lot of time, actually, maybe 50% time. So I was able to experiment in the nighttime and the weekend to really pick up the momentum about the ideas I want to test, the business I want to entrepreneur about. So that's how I made the switch during the pandemic. I quit the job and started a company.
And you mentioned your passion. You discover your passion or your call about plant-based and vegan. What sparked that? What drove you to specifically plant-based proteins or meat?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, everybody. I mean, there's three main reasons for people begin the plant-based diet usually, right? There's the environmental reason, there's animal welfare, there is personal health, and I guess my reason is a little bit of everything. It's actually started more about like the self-improvement and the spiritual seeking. So I always kind of struggle a little bit. I feel like in my mind, the physical world it is important. They nourish us. You need to have some social status and budget to live in a good life. However, to me, spiritual seeking is always very important. I feel like no matter how successful you can be in your in the wealth, in the social status, what really drove your inner happiness is not that. A person can be very happy without much money. So I always wanted to seek the true happiness. This is kind of a little bit off the topic, but that's kind of really my inner drive. And I find a type of yoga or meditation methods,
Yeah.
and I start to practice that. After a few months, I realized I gained much more consciousness in my whole body perception. And one day, after the launch of some meat, I felt so heavy in my body because of the practice I was doing. And I decided I tell myself, maybe if I wanted to get rid of some compulsive habit in myself, maybe this is one of the things I can get rid of. So I decided to quit meat during that time. Then it worked. I mean, I can never go back. It's very miraculous, right? Once you realize how light and how much happier your body can be without the reliance on the animal meat, the world becomes very different.
So you went through a serious personal and professional changes. You were growing your family. You were building a new company, transforming the way you eat and the way you relate to food. Can you share some of those challenges and how did you deal with them during those first couple of years?
Um, to me, I'm the person, if I made the mind of doing something and I feel that's right for my heart, uh, it is definitely it's challenging. It's difficult, but there's always opportunities in the challenge, right? If you enjoy doing what you are doing, you don't feel like it's a challenge. You just see this is something you just have to do in order to get to the next step. It's almost like analogies like when we go on a trip to a different country, to a different scenery you love to do, right? And usually it's pretty tiring. You have to spend the whole day walking around, the navigating what's the town, where the place you want to go. It could be physically very tiring, actually. However, usually people are very, very uplifting mentally because that's the place they want to do. That's the place they want to visit. They don't feel those kind of tiredness from physically. So I think mainly a lot of challenge we kind of impose on ourselves is mental challenge.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, physically, we can do much more if we are willing. If you love that stuff, if you love the scenery, everything, right? You can do much more. Usually, people will put some kind of mental barrier in ourselves. Say, "Oh, I cannot do this. This is something I never done before." and then make you drown physically as well. So I do think it's very important when we do everything you want to do, you have to be very happy mentally. Then you can conquer everything you want.
Well, that obviously has translated in your success as an entrepreneur. So why don't we dive a little bit into the expertise, how you apply your professional background in food science, in plant-based meat products, and how did you build Alchemeat, your company? Tell us a little bit about your company and your products. What innovations you apply to get to where you are.
Yeah, definitely. So as I will talk a little bit about my background. So I have been around in food industry for a long time, and my expertise has been around in food innovation, product development, manufacturing, everything. So this is not something too new for me, actually. And especially after I become vegan, then I felt like the most challenging thing is always protein. Like no matter you are vegan or not, you need to have sufficient amount of protein, right? And especially in the vegan world, there's very little. You know, when people talk about vegan or plant-based, they think about salad as the first sight, right?
Right.
Yeah, we have to bring much more diversity. So the protein is number one challenge. And not only that, the formality, the how taste you can make the protein is most important for the food industry. So food industry is all about taste. No matter we say like how healthy we want to make people's life be, but for the massive population, the first thing for any food product, you have to make it tasty first. So that's the angle I was looking at it. And when you look at what's on the market, mainly is the ground beef, ground meat alternatives. There's a lot of patties, there's a lot of sausage, a lot of burgers around. However, there's not a proper whole cut meat. And if you look at the animal meat industry, the meat lovers or the meat eaters, majority of them eat whole cut meat, which is about 60% of the whole meat consumption, equal to 60 billion pounds in US alone. That's huge volume. And there's very few players tapping that actually. And so my vision is that if we can make the plant-based meat, or we call it animal-free meat, as tasty as a real steak, as a real whole cut meat, and making all these fan favorite dishes like fajitas, Mongolia beef, BBQ steak, rapavia, all of these famous beef dishes, people will really go after that. So that's how I started this idea. And the technology we use is very unique as well. We have patent behind of that. And it's also, I mean, we were able to leverage the existing equipment, but really prime or optimize the processing and the formulation to drive this innovation. So it's a very simple process. It's not heavily processed. It's we can think about it's like the process making pastas, but instead we were able to make the protein fibers very similar to the beef steak. So when people eat our product, they'll see very clearly the fiber structure. And when they bite into that, they will feel it's elastic, it's firm, and the juiciness at the same time. So we were able to really mimic the mouthfeel or the residence time in people's chewing experience, eating experience about this meat. So why it's also have this residual strength, or we call it gradual degradation when you eat it. So it's not like a cake; it goes away. So you take some efforts in your mouth for you to chew and to really taste the great flavor of that. So that's why now we have almost 10,000 people tasting that. I would say 99% of them agree this is the best steak-like texture on the market. And many of them always tell us, we cannot believe this is not meat. So yeah, that's where we are.
That's fabulous. You're building your company and in a market that's super competitive. Chicago, of all places, the food capital of North America, or at least the US, I would say, or argue. Tell me a little bit about the challenges and opportunities growing your company and how you've been able to leverage these to shape the future of food?
Yeah, definitely. I particularly chose Chicago when I moved to McCain Foods, right? It is a food capital. I think we reclaimed that recently after the pandemic of the US, at least, or even in the world. There are more than like 300, I believe, food companies here, and most of them are headquartered right here because it's close. It's probably closest to all the ingredients from Midwest, the farmers, the everything. So it's a great place to be. It has a great community of food innovators, marketers, and branding people around here too. It's really a lot of resource around here. It's a great place to be. And we started with a incubator actually in the Chicagoland called Chicago Hatchery, which really helped support us tremendously in starting up the food business, understanding what's required to do a startup. And also we were surrounded with a bunch of very supportive fellow entrepreneurs in the community as well. So that's kind of a very, very good ambience or atmosphere for us to be based in Chicago. And also the most important thing is really the product. No matter where are you based, the most important is you have to have the most unique product, and product really speak to the customers. And that's what we believe we have got. And certainly, when we start to do the sales, Chicago is a great customer base as well. Maybe it's not as open as California or the East Coast for the plant-based diet. However, it's really big enough, right? We have, especially when we are focusing on B2B, the food service and restaurants, there's a huge amount of like restaurant chains, big hotels, communities, universities who really favor this type of diet. So we made a great headways here, and we were able to sell into 30 plus restaurants and the retailers within a couple months.
Fantastic. And any final words? So we at Yodel in our innovation platform, we have entrepreneurs, we have food scientists, have people working in the plant-based meat industry, in the cellular meat. So any advice, any final words to encourage them, to guide them through their growth and expanding their companies?
Yeah, just a kind of few personal principles, right? And to me, this is one of my favorite quote. Imagination without execution is hallucination. So
that's very true.
In the startup world, it's all about execution.
Yeah.
And it's I think a lot of people can have great ideas, for sure. Like I would say 90% of the time you have more great ideas. However, how you execute is really the key. And also startup is all about agile and iterative. You have to execute, and to be able to learn from your error and to be able to improve very quickly from there too. So that's definitely something I do every day, and I do all sorts of different things, even though it's a product. But when you are managing a business, everything you need to manage. So it's all about execution. And secondly, generally for food industry, right? I'm not speaking to pharmaceutical, everything like that. But for food industry, the two most important elements, we talk about the taste is definitely number one. Secondly is the cost. So food industry is all about volume and scale. Of course, we can target some kind of niche market that will take a longer time to get to the scale, or maybe great marketing and branding. However, for general food industry, you have to have certain scale. You have to be able to scale up very quickly. And that's very important. So to be able to get to the taste and cost right from the beginning is the key to the success. And for somebody like me who came from the core of food industry, I remember this all the time. We need to be very pragmatic. Even though we classify ourselves as food technologies, however, the technology don't need to be there if it cannot be applied. And that's my philosophy too. I spent a lot of time in university, in graduate school. I have seen lots of patents sitting there for 30 something years without any usage. So for us, if we want to do some patents, if we want to do some technology, it need to have the commercial value and application right away. Otherwise, there's no need to do that. Of course, I'm not speaking to universities, but this is in the commercial world. That's something we have to really keep in mind to drive the profitability. So it's not only, I guess there's sort of 3 stages. There's a product market fit, and there's a profit market fit. Then 3rd stage, you can be profit sustainable, then you can really grow the company. So I think it's very important to know, not only you have product market fit, you need to have a profit market fit to drive the sustainable growth of the company.
Well, Juan, I know that you're extremely busy, and especially these days, you have constant meetings with customers, and that your company is growing like crazy. I want to really thank you for your time today and for sharing your experience and your advice to with our YOL members in Canada. I wish you all the best, and thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. My greatest pleasure.
Thank you. Bye now.
Yeah, bye.